When Stranger Things debuted on Netflix in 2016, it was an overnight sensation. Viewers binge-watched in droves, and by the time Season 2 was released in 2017, the show had become a bona fide smash. Netflix doesn't share their viewership figures, but it's been estimated that the first episode of the second season was watched by over 15 million people within the first 3 days. What is it about this show that makes it so popular? There are lots of reasons, but the show's success ultimately comes down to just 3 key factors. Number 3. The setting. We live in a nostalgia-driven society, now more so than in any other time in modern history. The 1980s were a crazy, tacky, magical time that's missed by many who lived through it, and viewed with fascination by a younger generation that marvels at the bad hair, the primitive video games, and the bizarre fashion. The 80s were a time before cell phones, Instagram, YouTube, or GPS, when you really could disappear into the world around you. Kids rode their bikes for miles with no parents around to keep tabs on them. You could disappear for hours and no one knew where you were. Anything could happen, and that's an exciting contrast to the world in which we live now. However, unlike so many other shows that use the 1980s as their setting, Stranger Things chooses the time frame to be the background, not the focus. The show's creators, Matt and Ross Duffer, deliberately tell every part of their story as if it were not only set in the 1980s, but also created during the 1980s as well. Check out that amazing title sequence and the synthesizer score for proof. The 1980s is absolutely another character on the show, but it's never treated like a joke or acknowledged with a wink. Many shows and movies introduce a larger-than-life 1980s that's become a pastiche of everything that was ever popular throughout the entire decade. The early 1980s of Stranger Things mirrors the one that actually happened. It acts as a tapestry that hangs in the background of every scene, reminding us of a time and a place without taking us out of what we're supposed to be paying attention to, which is the story. Number 2. The influences. Detractors of the show make the argument that Stranger Things is nothing but a greatest hits project compiled from the best parts of other shows and movies. I think that's being too harsh. But I also think that the movies that Matt and Ross grew up with not only shaped their taste, but also defined their style. Watch the show and you'll see not simply 1 or 2 visual references, but dozens, if not hundreds. The influences are so apparent and so ingrained within each and every episode, from the premise to the dialogue to the visuals, that they're inseparable from the show itself. There are plenty of YouTube videos that point out the Easter eggs from each episode, and the reason that there are so many of these Easter eggs is because the show is a love letter to the magical movies and the culture of the 1980s. It's undeniable that Stranger Things owes a huge debt to the works of John Carpenter, Stephen King, and countless other action, horror, and mystery movies, books, and TV shows from the 1980s. The Duffer Brothers are children of the 80s, steeped in a very particular set of influences that pours out of them, like the serials and the westerns of the 40s and the 50s poured out of a previous generation of filmmakers that included Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. All directors stand on the shoulders of giants, specifically the filmmakers who influenced them when they were young. This is no exception. Though Stranger Things is set slightly before their time, Matt and Ross Duffer know the cinematic world of Stranger Things like the back of their hand. It's literally pieced together from the entertainment that shaped them when they were children. Number 1. The cast. Even with a popular setting and powerful influences, Stranger Things would be nothing close to the success that it is without its amazing cast. The kids on the show are great actors, but there's also an indefinable quality that each one brings to their role. If you've watched Beyond Stranger Things on Netflix, you'll see Matt and Ross Duffer talking about how characters on the script page were more like stereotypes, and it's the actors who brought their own personality to the show. You can write characters like Dustin or Lucas, but it's the kids themselves who inhabit the roles. In this sense, the show catches lightning in a bottle. This is one of the most talented and charismatic group of actors in recent television history. Winona Ryder is great and goes to some places emotionally that we've never seen her explore. David Harbour is playing a subtle character that has multiple levels. He's broken and fractured, but he's also smart and really great at his job, even when he doesn't want to be. Millie Bobby Brown is the standout of the series as Eleven, and she brings an intensity to her performance that's tempered with vulnerability. She has a natural talent that belies her years, and her character is someone that we can care about, even if we're not totally on board with what she's doing. People who've been working in television or movies will quickly admit that you can put together the best cast in the world, but if they have no chemistry, the magic just isn't there. The cast of Stranger Things has incredible chemistry, and their interaction with each other is one of the biggest draws of the show. So there you have it. Each of these three factors is important on its own, but combined, they work together to make Stranger Things one of the biggest successes in recent history.